Okay, good afternoon. Sorry I'm late, had some technical difficulties. Today is September 23rd, 2022. I am Stephen Herwire. I am the owner of Herwire Financial Plans with Direction. Today we're going to be talking about Roth accounts. Few important disclosures. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. All performance reference is historical, not a guarantee of future results. All data is believed to be from reliable sources. However, no representation is made as to its completeness or accuracy. None of this is to be construed as tax or legal advice. Consult your advisor prior to taking any action. Let's talk about last night's numbers. Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 30,076.68. Year to date, it is down almost 17.25%. The S&P 500 closed at 3757.99. Year to date, it is down 21.15%. The NASDAQ 100 closed at 11,501.65. Down a little over 29.5%. Gold closed at $1646.23 per ounce, down 10% year to date. The Bitcoin index, 18,923.92. Year to date, it is down almost 60.5%. The US dollar index closed at 111.26. Year to date, it is up 16.3%. 10-year Treasury closed at 3.78%. It is up over 2.25% from coming out of the starting gate at the beginning of the year at 1.51%. The S&P Aggregate Bond Index closing at 192.2. Year to date is down 12.45%. Now let's talk about Roth accounts. Now there's two major vehicles with the Roth designation. There are IRAs and there are 401ks. There's no immediate tax advantage to contributing to a Roth. For Roth IRAs, there is an income ceiling. For Roth 401ks, there is no income ceiling. Now, what I mean when I say income ceiling is you make too much money, you can't contribute to a Roth. No such restriction on a Roth IRA. There's no such restriction on a Roth 401k. And if you turn 50 in any given calendar year, there are catch-up provisions. And what this means is whether you were born on January 1st or December 31st, that particular year, you can start using the catch-up provisions. And by the way, there are a few other vehicles that have the Roth name stamped on them, like 457s. I'm not going to be talking about them today. Number one, with Roth IRAs, you must have earnings to contribute. Now, there's one exception, caveat to that. If you are the spouse of someone who has earnings, you can contribute also, as long as you meet the two caveats. Number one is you cannot contribute more than there are earnings in the household, and you can't do more than $6,000 a year per person. Okay, what that means, if your spouse only makes $5,000, the most between the two of you that you can put into a Roth IRA is $5,000, and could be $25,000 for one spouse and $2,500 for the other spouse. But if that spouse earns at least $12,000, then you can both put $6,000 into a Roth IRA. If you're 50, as I mentioned, there's a catch-up provision, and that's an additional $1,000. So any year you're turning 50 or later, you can put $7,000 in. Please note these are 2022 numbers. And when you start making lots of money, there is a maximum income where contributions begin to phase out. Okay, so if you're single, filing singles, it begin to phase out at a modified adjusted gross income of $129,000. That means you can't do full contributions after once you reach that income level. Once you reach 144,000, your ability to contribute directly to a Roth IRA is gone. And those amounts for married filing jointly are $204,000. That's the beginning of the phase out. And it's totally eliminated at $214,000. By the way, for anybody that's dragging out their tax returns and saying, what line is the modified adjusted gross income? I don't think it's on there. I think you got to call your accountant and ask, hey, what's my modified adjusted gross income? Okay, if you are over these limits, there is a method to get money into a Roth IRA. Contact your financial advisor and they'll help you. If it's the right thing, they'll help you do it. I'm not going to explain it here. Okay, in order to get the monies out tax-free, the easiest one to remember is you got to be older than 59 and a half. Okay, if you're younger than 59 and a half, you can't pull everything out tax-free. And by the way, unlike the catch-up contributions where it's a calendar year thing, if you start pulling money out the day before you turn 59 and a half, that doesn't count. So you got to be, that 59 and a half's got to be in the rear view mirror. The other less commonly known one is the 5-year requirement. Now, when you set up your first Roth IRA with your name and social security number on it, when the first dollar hits, it starts a 5-year timer. And when that 5-year timer runs out and you're older than 59 and a half, you get to pull it all out tax-free. Now, if you start contributing in your 20s, 30s, 40s, and for the first 4.5 years of your 50s, you don't have to worry about this. However, let's say hypothetically, your first Roth IRA, you pitched money in there at age 56. Well, you got to wait till 61 before it all comes out tax-free. Your contributions are always tax-free because Uncle Sam has the philosophy that he already got his cut on that money, so he doesn't care if you pull that out. Not saying you should do it or you shouldn't. Your situation, work that out with your advisor, see what makes sense. Okay, the window for contributing for any given tax year runs from January 1 of the tax year in question, and it ends April 15th the following year. So if you want to contribute to a Roth IRA for tax year 2022, that window opened on January 1st of 2022. That window will be closed April 15th in 2023. And it doesn't matter if you file for an extension. The extension may apply to finishing up your tax forms. It does not apply to contributions to your Roth IRA. Consult your investment or tax advisor. Oh, by the way, if you're contributing for the previous year in January, February, March, and that first half of April, you must specify, and I always put it in writing. My recommendation is always to write it on the check, so when it shows up at the fund company, they will have clear evidence that was your intent. Roth 401ks. Just like the Roth IRAs, you got to have earnings to contribute. It's in the form of payroll deduction where you work. Now, you cannot contribute more than you earn, or you cannot contribute more than $20,500 per person per year, whichever is lower. And if you turn 50 that year or in years past, there's a $6,500 catch-up provision. So if you're 50 years old or older or going to be 50 this particular year, you can contribute up to $27,000. And just like the IRA, you got to meet 2 conditions. The 5-year requirement, which first dollar in a Roth 401k. That first dollar you put in your Roth IRA 10 years ago doesn't count towards this one. And you got to be older than 59 and a half. And there may be a provision to get it out earlier based on your plan without paying a penalty. Check with your plan administrator and your financial advisor to determine before you go doing it. Not saying that's a good idea either, but it's possible. Okay, the Roth implications. Okay. Normally, when you pitch money into a traditional 401k, when you yank $1 out, something less than $1 comes out of your paycheck. The reason for that is when you're doing for a non-Roth contribution, accounting says, oh, well, we're not going to withhold whatever we're withholding for taxes on that dollar. So something less than $1. I'm used to seeing somewhere between 65 and 80 cents coming out. Every situation is going to be different. That's just my personal anecdotal observation. Whereas if you kick $1 into a Roth 401k, your paycheck will go down by $1. Roth disbursements. This is another important thing that people are not aware of. If you're collecting Social Security, there are certain things that will cause your Social Security to be taxed more. And they do this calculation called provisional income. It determines how much of your Social Security is taxable. Okay. Pulling money out of a Roth account will not affect this at all. So before you decide in your excitement to get money that's tax-free out, you need to consider, does that make sense? Especially if you're not drawing Social Security yet. If you pull money out of a traditional, that could well affect the taxability of your Social Security benefits. Check with your tax advisor. Okay, $1 in a Roth account is worth more frequently than $1 in a traditional account, because most of the time when you pull money out of a traditional IRA or 401k, you're going to pay taxes on it. Not all the time, there's certain exceptions, but a lot of the time that's the case. With the Roth, as long as you've met the 5-year and the 59.5, you can end up paying no taxes. Having a Roth 401k at work does not affect your ability to contribute to a Roth IRA. Income's the only thing that affects that. If you're below those income limits, you can contribute, as long as you have earned incomes. Now, here's an important safety tip for all you people out there in Facebook land that are doing an automatic contribution to your Roth 401k. First off, hats off to you. I think it's a good thing, generally speaking, but there's going to come that day where you're going to say, yeah, I've had enough of this. You're going to get the gold watch from the company and you're going to ride off into the sunset. If you got a good plan, you might sail off into the sunset. Any case, sometimes people forget that they're putting that monthly contribution in, and they do it into a year that they don't have earnings, in which case there can be penalties. So when you're getting ready to quit, one of the things on the checklist is, do I still contribute to my Roth or do I stop? Talk to your financial advisor about it. Okay, where does this show up on the post-graduation spectrum? Well, number one, it starts in the working years. Most important question you should be asking if you are working, and the sooner you ask this question and get the answer, the better. Am I saving enough for retirement? Okay, if you don't know the answer to this, then you may not retire when you want to. My advice is to get a plan and help determine that. Recently, I did this for one of my clients, and she found out she had to do a whopping extra $100 a month, which was not a big stretch for her, fortunately. Earlier you do this, the smaller that number, generally speaking, is going to be. Okay. The other end of this equation is, will my money outlive me? We talked about the fact that Roths do not affect your Social Security taxability. And that's why it's critical to have a plan when you're getting ready to retire, so we can pick the right time, the time for you to pick Social Security, when to disperse your Roths, etc. So that's all on Roth accounts for this week. Stay tuned for next week's Facebook Live, market turbulence and what to do about it. We've seen some pretty harsh markets lately, and I'm not enamored of bringing you bad news. So I want to give you some ideas for what you can do to ride out this storm. How do you reach me? You can reach me at herwirefinancial.com. This is a clip of the top of my webpage. There is a big schedule an appointment button on the upper right-hand corner. You can use that to schedule a phone, a Zoom, an in-person appointment. I am registered and licensed in several states, and if I'm not in your state, schedule an appointment, we'll have a conversation. If there's enough interest on both our parts, then I can get easily registered and licensed in your state. If nothing else, I can share some generic information that you hadn't heard before. If you want to see more videos like this, please go to my YouTube channel. Please like it if you like it. Please share with your friends. You can also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And for those who are not so hot about using computers, you can call me on the phone, 518-631-2569. Have a terrific day.